the key interception in that second half. George Kittle, forget the 3 catches, sensational blocking. And Tevin Coleman, that triumvirate at running back, over 100 yards for the 49ers. Standing by now with Michelle Tafoya.
Mike, thank you. George, how would you describe this feeling? First playoff game in this building. You got to beat a good Minnesota Vikings team. What's the sentiment? What's the feeling?
Oh, it's fantastic. You know, we just wanted to come out and play good football. I think we did pretty good in all 3 phases. A lot of things to clean up, but we played well enough to get the win, and, you know, that's all you can ask for. Playoff football, you know, anyone can win, and we just made more plays today.
How can you quantify, if you can, how much that rest meant to you, that bye week?
Oh, it was incredible. We got to get a lot of guys back. A lot of guys, you know, were banged up. You know, we got D Ford back. We got Kowalski back. We got Quan back. I mean, with our defense like that, it's pretty fun to play football.
Next week, it's either Seattle for a 3rd time this year or Green Bay, who you pummeled here on a Sunday night football game. How will you be watching that game tomorrow?
I'm just going to watch it, try to enjoy it. I know Coach will have a game plan for us ready pretty quickly, so I'm just going to watch and have fun.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
All right, let's turn to Tevin Coleman. I like the chain.
Appreciate that. Appreciate it.
You know, Kyle Shanahan says he goes with the guy who's got the hot hand. Why did the hot hand belong to you today?
You know what I'm saying? We practice so hard. We work so hard, you know what I'm saying? And things just worked out, you know what I'm saying? All the backs, they work hard. All the backs, they fight hard. And, you know what I'm saying? Any one of us can be in there and make plays. So
today it was you, and from what we saw, the offensive line was so fast off the ball. From your position as a running back, what did you see from your front?
Man, you know, so those guys did very well, you know what I'm saying? They move the guys back so I can have clear holes to run through. So, yeah, they did a real good job.
And how would you describe this feeling? You're heading to the NFC Championship game, and you guys get to host.
Man, it's an amazing feeling, man. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be with this team right here. And just to feel it for them, you know what I'm saying? Just to feel the energy and everything. It's an amazing feeling to be here.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Congrats.
Mike?
All right, Michelle, thank you. With Tony Dungy and Rodney Harrison. Guys, you as a player and a coach won 12 playoff games. You won 10 playoff games. Before we jump ahead and break this game down, just the joy of being a part of a winning postseason game. You were talking to John Lynch at the end over here.
I did. I told John I was so proud of him, and we did talk about 97 and our first win and just how special it is when you get all of these people behind you and you realize, hey, we've taken that first step.
Yeah, I'm going to look at Minnesota, Mike, and it was just so difficult to go on the road, have an emotional win with the Saints, and come back and play on the West Coast against the #1 seed. That's why it's so important to have that home field advantage.
They were dominated on the ground in the second half. San Francisco ran the ball 47 times in this game, 29 times in the second half. Let's jump to Jimmy Garoppolo. A lot of attention on his first playoff start. Your assessment of how he played today?
I thought he played really well, and I thought Kyle Shanahan, the coach, had a great game plan. Early in the game, play action, get the ball out quick, throw it, off the play action, give him some easy reads, and he was sensational finding these open receivers.
The thing that really impressed me most about him, Coach, was his toughness. We were in there watching the game. He hurt his ankle, and I thought it was over for him, but he came in there, made some big plays, and that's what I've been saying all year. He is one of the toughest quarterbacks out there.
Garoppolo just 11 of 19 passing, so the numbers don't jump out at you, but was efficient, did throw the 1 interception, wasn't on target as often as we've seen him earlier in this run.
And this is what he's going to have to learn. You come out, you're feeling great, I can get the ball in everywhere. You don't have to take those kind of chances when you're dominating up front like they did, and this is what he'll learn.
And credit to Kyle Shanahan. In the second half, Garoppolo wasn't as sharp with some of the timing stuff. They just ran the ball. It was working.
That's all you have to do, Mike.
Well, you know what? We saw the Sugar Hill Gang at halftime.
Yeah.
The 49ers gave us some old school football today. Control the line of scrimmage offensively and defensively. Run and stop the run, and you're going to win.
That was a good one right there.
I knew you were going to work that in. Way to go, Coach. Jimmy Garoppolo in his first playoff start gets a victory. So the first time starters in this postseason have split their games. Josh Allen and Buffalo losing the wild card game last weekend in Houston. Ryan Tannehill won in Foxborough. Carson Wentz, of course, injured here on NBC against Seattle last Sunday. Garoppolo gets the win, and he will move on. Tom Brady's the last quarterback to win the Super Bowl in the same season as his first postseason start, happening, of course, in 2001. Jimmy Garoppolo, who tutored under Brady, Now is the chance to be the next one since. We talked about the run game. So much credit to the dominance that they had up front and established in this game.
Yeah, and you heard them go and talk about how they had to control the line of scrimmage, and they did it up front. It was blowing people off the ball, those backs making one cut and going downhill.
Yeah, we talked in the pregame about them having 3 really good backs. I thought Raheem Mostert was going to come out, and that was a surprise. And then they get Tevin Coleman here, but just dominating up front. I mean, Tevin Coleman is a really good back, but you kind of look at Minnesota. They just completely got handled at the front line of scrimmage, Coach.
And it really was that zone blocking scheme that got those backs into the secondary. They were coming downhill all day into the Minnesota secondary.
Coleman had 22 carries. Mostert had 12. Breida had 8. We know Coleman had over 100 yards in that touchdown that you saw there. The 47 rushing attempts for the 49ers, that's a playoff franchise record. And this is a franchise that's played a bunch of playoff games, so they really established it on the ground. Then on the flip side of that, when you have a defense that can stop the other team's run, which is what Dalvin Cook in Minnesota does best, that gives you a great chance to dominate the game, and that's what we saw.
To me, of all the things I saw today, that would give me the most confidence as a 49er fan. That defensive line flew around, they penetrated, they dominated the line of scrimmage. Dalvin Cook is a really good back. Minnesota knows how to run the ball. They couldn't make a yard today, and it was that front that got it done.
Yeah, that front was tremendous getting after the quarterback. They did everything they could to get Dalvin Cook the ball. They tried to run him in between the tackles. They worked on screens. But the speed of that defense and them being healthy, it just took over the game.
And then once Minnesota got one-dimensional and just had to drop back and throw it, the pass rushers came through. Nick Bosa, Armstead, D Ford. It was just wave after wave after wave of pressure.
And I love what they did up front. They moved those guys around. D Ford is a defensive end, but he played inside. Eric Armstead played inside. Joey Bosa played inside. Those guys are just out there balling, having fun, Mike.
And then Bosa, we thought he was injured. He gets up and he yucks it up with the crowd.
Lazarus.
He had 2 sacks in his NFL playoff debut. The likely defensive rookie of the year in the NFL. Armstead, Buckner each had 1. First-round draft picks all invested by John Lynch, the GM, on those guys. D Ford off the hamstring injury also comes up with a sack.
You know, John played in the secondary in Tampa. He had a bunch of #1 draft choices in front of him. Simeon Rice, Warren Sapp, Booger McFarland. And that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to get that front group dominant, and he's got that.
You know why? Because he's a defensive back, and he understands how important it is to have all those guys up front, because as a DB, you can jump routes, you can guess, you can take chances and be more aggressive, Mike.
And you speak of defensive backs, the second-team All-Pro, Richard Sherman, the veteran leadership on this team, came up with an interception, and he had a familiar location, a victorious postseason locker room to celebrate.
We earned the opportunity to play again. Enjoy it for the 24 hours, but we just earned the opportunity to play again. Let's go do it. Let's keep it up. Niners on 3. 1, 2, 3. Niners!
Yeah! Good job there, man. And the hug with Garoppolo and Shanahan as they each get their first playoff win. Not the over-the-top euphoria, because they know there's more business 8 days from now right on this field.
They expect it, Mike. They expect this.
Absolutely. Hosting Seattle or Green Bay in the NFC Championship game. For more on this game, let's bring in Liam McHugh, Mike Florio, and Chris Sims. Guys?
Thanks, Mike. How about Tony Dungy breaking down the game, dropping pop culture references? I thought we were going to get a little rapper's delight there for a second.
That would have been great. That would have made it up for today.
You look at the 49ers, they give up just 147 total yards. That's a playoff record for their defense. Dominance here today. Big takeaway for you?
The big thing that's jumped out to me is last week we saw the Vikings dominate the Saints on both sides of the ball, offense and defensive line. And I thought, wow, they're going to feed off that. This 49er matchup's going to be tough. But the 49ers dominated the line of scrimmage. And really, the Vikings could get nothing going. I think that's where I start, just right there. The 49ers looked like the team we saw in the first 10 weeks of the season with that dominant defense in the run game.
Yeah, and the 49ers did to the Vikings what the Vikings wanted to do to the 49ers. They wanted to be able to run the ball, and they just couldn't. And if the Vikings can't run the ball, they can't do anything else. Everything in their offense flows from the ability to get that defense back on their heels, worrying about Dalvin Cook. And if you can't get that engine started, nothing's going to work, and we saw that today.
All right, so you look at the 49ers defense, how they stopped him. We talked about Kirk Cousins, things that were working for him leading up to this game, and then all of a sudden went away. What did you see?
Well, I think the great team speed of the front seven from the San Francisco 49ers. First of all, like Mike talked about, they couldn't get Dalvin Cook going sideline to sideline because Quan Alexander, Jaquaski Tarter back. The defense ends are so fast. So they were all over the run game. And then the discipline of Bosa and D Ford to constantly be there, right? Every time we saw Cousins do the bootleg, somebody was in his space and he had to try to get the ball out of his hand.
And D Ford was the key. He'd been injured, he'd missed time. To get him back with those other defensive linemen, they were dominant, and that's how they've tried to build this defense around that dominant defensive line. You get them all healthy, you get them all ready to go, and they're hard to stop.
All right, dominant effort by the 49ers. They move on. Let's go back to Mike Tirico.
Well, Liam, the fans are chanting Bosa because he's here. We'll talk to Nick Bosa, 2 sacks in his first playoff game.